User-generated platforms now account for more than half of content-driven ad revenue, surpassing traditional media for the first time. Expected creator ad revenue by 2030 is supposed to be $376 billion, and 73% of global ad spend right now is digital, with the majority directed to UGC and creative platforms. Spells good news for the creative platforms, but how do we think traditional media can respond to this if they can?
Jordan, what's happening, man? How you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you? Got an early one today. How are you doing?
I'm rocking and rolling, man. Rise and shine, up early. Let's get it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How's your weekend?
My weekend was good. I went to New Hampshire. One of my friends actually graduated from law school, so
Nice.
went to New Hampshire and celebrated with him. New Hampshire's like so beautiful. I did
Yeah.
like it's one of those places where you're like, are we even in America right now? Or are we in like Norway? Like it's
Yeah.
like really, really beautiful. So
That's awesome.
had a great time. Somehow avoided being hungover the whole time, so that's a plus. But
Nice,
how
man.
about you?
It was good. I actually had a good friend that organized a retreat at a really cool, like 40-acre property upstate. Beautiful,
Wow, we had like the
great
same type of
opportunity.
weekends.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. The Berkshires. So definitely feeling grounded and refreshed. Grateful. I'm grateful for you, Jordan.
I'm grateful for you, Sam.
There it is. Well, we got a lot of fun stories in the docket to discuss today, ranging from a recent $150 million influencer marketing agency acquisition, an interesting strategic investment by way of MLB into a interesting new media company. And last but not least, there's some really shocking stats around how UGC and creator brand partnership revenue is starting to generate more than that of some traditional advertising outlets and mediums. So lots of exciting things to discuss. Without any further ado, we'll jump right into the first one. Publicis made a $150 million acquisition of Captivate. It's spelled Captiv8. As you may already be aware, Publicis is largely a conglomerate. One of the global leaders in advertising made the strategic acquisition of Captivate, an enterprise influencer marketing company, for an estimated $150 million, according to the Wall Street Journal. This is Publicis' third significant investment in influencer technology within the past 2 years. If you may recall, last year there was a $500 million purchase of Influential, amongst others. What Captivate really brings to the table here is a vast network of 15 million creators, some really interesting and advanced tech surrounding affiliate marketing tools, analytics, and attribution, as well as strong client lists, right? The 70% of the Fortune 100 are clients of Captivate and utilizing them for influencer marketing campaigns. So I think this is a really interesting move and ultimately underscores Publicis' commitment to scaling influencer and affiliate capabilities as the demand for that medium grows. That also reported that Publicis has plans to allocate over $1 billion for acquisitions this year. So definitely a lot of really exciting things happening here. Couple other really interesting stats is worth noting. Publicis they've been buying up, right? If you can't beat them, buy them. Is what Publicis' corporate development.
That's what we're trying to say too. Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to. Yeah.
So that 27 acquisitions over the past 5 years, pretty crazy stat. Another thing, there's 2.5 billion annual social posts processed by Captivate's platform. So it's obviously a pretty ridiculous number of scale. So a lot of really exciting developments there. I'm curious from your perspective, what stands out surrounding this deal to you, Jordan?
I think Publicis just sees where advertising is going, and it's moving a little bit away from traditional media markets. We'll talk about this later in the podcast, and moving towards non-traditional media markets like creator influencers. One of the things that's also helping drive the generation of advertising dollars in that space is artificial intelligence. It's now easier than ever to create content. I know me and you spent 4 hours over the weekend or a few days ago figuring out how to automate a lot of the stuff that we're going through. I'm figuring out right now how to create an agent for us that'll make it way easier to produce content. And that means it'll make it easier for us to get advertisers. And that's happening at scale. millions and millions of more people are creating content and making it easier to advertisers to connect to their ideal consumer. And I think Publicis just sees that coming. I mean, if I had this amount of money, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, how do we get as many creators as possible in our pipeline of potential ad revenue and ad dollars, and on a roster of people who we can curate to advertisers? One of the things I think that's interesting about this, though, is these advertisers can get to these creators' audiences by way of actually making products that the creators like as well. So we've seen endorsements before. I mean, I've seen endorsements like for people on for cell phone companies, for all these huge big conglomerates, and I think we'll just see a lot more niche products coming out that actually cater to both the creator and both to their communities. And I think Publicis sees that coming. I think it's a really, really smart investment. Like I said, I would do the same thing. It's a huge bet, huge risk. There's obviously competition in terms of creators and who actually gets that ad revenue. So they're trying to just squelch it, just get rid of it by trying to represent as many creators and influencers as possible. So, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's representative of general growth of budgets by big brands, big enterprise, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies are just continuing to allocate more and more budget towards influencer campaigns because they see that's where a lot of the attention lies. People are more glued to social media than they are to traditional media platforms, be it newspapers, television, right? We got some interesting stats we'll dive into there in a minute, but I think publicists, they need to stay up to date on how they can reach consumers where they are. The way in which vast majority of consumers are spending their time is across different social media platforms, engaging with influencer content. So I think it's great to see acquisitions like this only accelerate the maturity of the space and continue to bring more big brand budget into that sector. And I think that's exciting. One thing I do find interesting, though, is when I worked for Gary Vee, one of his big tenets is really this notion of trying to find underpriced attention. So it's kind of really revolves around the premise that marketing tactics are always going to ebb and flow. You want to get to something early before it's oversaturated by other marketers competing towards the same tactic and same attention. I'm very curious as to where we are in this general life cycle of influencer marketing as we know it. It definitely seems like I'd say we're past this kind of like early adopter phase and definitely in early majority. I think where something like Captivate stands out too is not only just the fact that they're helping deploy influencer ad dollars at scale, but they have some really interesting tech around affiliate tracking and attribution, which I know has historically been very challenging for influencer marketing campaigns.
Right.
Oftentimes, you're really trying to judge the success of an influencer marketing campaign based on earned media value, the total number of impressions, which is great from a brand awareness perspective. But we all know that businesses don't revolve solely around awareness; they revolve around transactions, right? Um, so I think it's with that said, I think it's great to see Publicis taking this step. Great to see bigger brands starting to compete in the space. I think it also creates an opportunity to continue to identify and pioneer new tactics and new formats and new ways to partner with influencers beyond just deploying ad spend at scale towards different creators. So I think excited to see how that evolves. And I think even one of the stories today around MLB's strategic investment kind of speaks to that as well. So we can jump into that in a second. But Jordan, you want to take us through the next one?
Yeah. Speaking of ad revenue and where those dollars are going, creator-driven social media platforms are projected to surpass traditional media, as in TV, print, radio, and cinema, in global advertising revenue this year, reaching nearly 185 billion. This shift is driven by performance marketing, digital platform dominance, and the growing influence of creators, with the creator economy expected to double by 2030, reshaping media and revenue landscapes. What traditional media is on the hot seat. What do you think they can do to change their approach? And can they change their approach? I mean, just some interesting stats. Over 50% of user-generated platforms now account for more than user-generated platforms now account for more than half of content-driven ad revenue, surpassing traditional media for the first time. Expected creator ad revenue by 2030 is supposed to be $376 billion, and 73% of global ad spend right now is digital, with the majority directed to UGC and creator platforms. Spells good news for the creator platforms, but how do we think traditional media can respond to this if they can?
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of build upon some of the stats from this article and research that was kind of shared by The Guardian, it's really kind of pressing into the fact too that it goes beyond just these like social media platforms, but user generated material. So videos, podcasts, and posts put together by individual creators is ultimately on track to eclipse the ad revenue attracted by professional media produced by different TV networks, cinemas, news companies. I think it is interesting because there still are a lot of bigger, more traditional media companies that are leaning into how can they create great content to earn attention, consumption, reach, engagement across social platforms. And I think it's forced all these different media publications to show up differently on those platforms. But that's largely because they're just having to play catch up with creators that are the pace car as far as attracting where attention lies. So I think the best media companies over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be the ones that come up with really interesting ways to partner with individual creators and talent, right? I think if you think about what are like the strengths and unique advantages that some of these bigger media publications have is they tend to have big brand partnership teams, both from a sales and account management perspective. They already have entrenched relationships with brand marketers and big agencies that are responsible for deploying lots of these different ad buys. I think a lot of different creators, although they're great at building reach, don't necessarily always have the best mechanisms for generating brand partnerships. So I think rather than these media companies solely trying to revolve around getting like ads inserted into their like media brand content, I think there'll be opportunities for them to operate more like that of a media network where they have a portfolio of different influencers and are bringing them brand deals, or they have a roster of different content series that are very influencer or creator led and kind of talent led. So I think we'll see the smartest media brands. We're already seeing that, right? I mean, you kind of look at like the rapid growth of something like Barstool and their portfolio of shows and how they've really been able to kind of break the careers and launch the careers of some great talent. So I think all in all, it's if you're a media company and influencer collaboration isn't a foundational element of your content and brand partnership strategy, you are not in a good place. On the flip side, if you are able to pioneer new models as a media brand to partner with different creators, I think you're well positioned for this massive like share shifting move as to where ad dollars are going.
Yeah, but I think it's also more nuanced than that. I think previously we've seen affiliate marketing flop, and I think before it was like this creator is selling out because they're collaborating with larger brand. I think consumers are expecting to see advertisements from creators, but I also think the advertisements have gotten better. I think it's very easy to tell when a creator is inorganically promoting a product. I'll give you an example. Last night, I just saw one from a creator promoting this coffee that's supposed to give you energy throughout the day based on mushrooms. And in the caption, it said, "I've partnered with Rise because I appreciate this." And I did buy Rise actually, but not because of that creator. I partnered with Rise because I think dot 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 dot. And that really felt like an affiliate marketing campaign. And because this creator had the they had the coffee held up next to their head, as opposed to a campaign where the person is actually making the coffee and drinking it in their own home. So I think the creative around agents,
Totally
around
agree. And
advertisements
I
in
think with
general
this
has
kind
gotten a
of
lot
shift in
better as
attention
well.
is this new set of formats for different ads, right? And for different like creative, like back when Facebook launched, you had like 3 different sorts of ad types, like feed ads, link ad, like, right? Now there's like 15 different placements and
Right.
5 different ways, different like ad units for each placement. Similarly, we're already starting to see it. I know one of our past episodes we were speaking about the YouTube Creator Partnerships Hub, where it's like some of these big platforms are really starting to bring creator collaborations and influencer recruiting directly into platform rather than just like serving content right in front of like a pre-roll ad on YouTube that's just getting played before the influencer's video is playing, right? Even these platforms are now finding ways to help creators
Right.
incorporate ads into their own content in creative ways, which I also think too is great, because then in those instances, the revenue, a bigger chunk of that revenue, I believe, was actually starting to go towards creators. Um, I think it's there's kind of the more like native integration into their content. Those deals tend to be a bit better than just like a pre-roll before their content. So very exciting indeed. As we come to our last story for the day, MLB bets on the creator economy by acquiring a stake in John Boy Media to engage the next generation of fans. Through Major League Baseball's strategic investment arm, they have purchased a minority stake in John Boy Media, a rapidly growing creator-led sports media brand. The strategic move aims to supercharge fan engagement, particularly among these younger digital-first audiences. It involves MLB buying out early investors, and John Boy's founders did a good job in structuring the deal in a way that enabled them to maintain creative and board control, ensuring that the brand's authentic voice shines through. If you're not familiar with John Boy Media, their audience has grown 63% in Q1 2025, with over 93 million social engagements last year. They have a handful of different content series, shows, thriving presence across different social channels. The partnership will see MLB players featured in their popular Warehouse game show. Some of the John Boy personalities will appear across official MLB platforms. There will also be development of new co-branded merchandise. This is really giving MLB direct access to a crucial audience demographic, while John Boy is going to benefit from access to league IP, sponsors, marquee events like the All-Star Game and Home Run Derby. So ultimately, this collaboration really highlights a growing trend of sports leagues partnering with agile creator brands to remain relevant in an evolving media landscape. A couple interesting stats here. One, in 2024, John Boy generated over $10 million in revenue, which is 44% year-over-year growth with a return to profitability. I think this is interesting by way of opening up some new revenue streams for John Boy. Since they are gaining access to the MLB and team IP, they'll be able to start releasing official co-branded merchandise, collaborations with league sponsors. And I think this ultimately just kind of aligns with like broader industry trend of kind of seeing this across NBA, PGA, NFL, where major sports leagues are finding ways to invest and innovate when it comes to partnering with different creators or creator-led brands to connect with younger, more engaged audiences. What stands out from this partnership to you, Jordan?
Well, I think one of the things from this partnership that's very evident is that the tide is turning when it comes to how viewers are connecting with brands. I think the mascots of brands now are creators. I think we've seen it earlier with Flo being an influencer for Progressive. We've seen it with the most interesting man in the world with Dos Equis. They sort of created these brands and creator influencers themselves. I think now it's just becoming creators themselves. I mean, John Boy, yeah, it's a media company, but it started with one person who's a sports commentator who has their own community and their own viewership base. So I think in terms of execution, what'll be really important here is for making the John Boy brand stand on its own and make it seem like it's a partnership as opposed to now John Boy is owned by MLB. I'm sure his creative team has talked to him a lot about that. But I think it signals a larger trend of companies, instead of inventing their own characters and mascots, actually reaching out to people to collaborate with them in order to and giving them some sort of equity in return, in order to help them grow their businesses. I think it's really important because creators now have a much deeper path to monetization when they go through this route than they do with just having an endorsement, because they actually get access to things that can actually help their content improve better. And that's what I'm looking forward to for him. I actually think I'm more excited for John Boy in this situation, obviously, because it's a media company, it's homegrown, but obviously MLB will get a really great team of people that are dedicated to actually creating great content and using that John Boy brand. I think will be really important for them to expand. So, I mean, 93 million social engagements is pretty impressive, you know. And if you can't, what did you say? If you can't beat them, buy him.
Yeah, no, I think it
So,
is great for both
what do you
parties.
think,
Makes
Sam?
a lot of sense. I think it is tough when you're a brand like John Boy Media, when it comes to having to tiptoe around a lot of the red tape around um, how you can go about using official league IP, whether that's different highlights, whether that's different team logos. So I think off top,
And the thing is that
yeah,
the MLB is going to have to, they're going to have to
yeah.
be
And
flexible.
I mean, in this
Like that's
instance,
the
that makes
world that
sense
we're
to the
in. They're going
MLB
to have to
because
be
they're being
flexible. You know,
flexible with the brand that they have direct participation in. But for John Boy too, now that they do get access to that, right? Like I think this opens up ways for them to grow their fan base faster by way of tapping into content that may have historically been off limits, and from a
right?
monetization perspective, right? Being able to do really interesting collaborations and really cool elevated merchandise um, that they couldn't have historically done in an official capacity, right? I think similarly, MLB, like these teams, I mean, if you think about like you always see these like post-game press conferences these days, right? Like, I mean, not even these days, right? That's just a part of the job as like a professional athlete. Um, the media
Yeah,
outlets at those press days don't necessarily carry the same punch as they used to, right? So nowadays it's more how can they provide access to players, to different creators and influencers and new media properties. So I think this is another really interesting draw, right? Like now these different teams and league, like public relations folks, will be able to really help facilitate collaborations with superstars within the league, right? Like this is going to really streamline that process of talent collaborations and talent booking for John Boy. So I think I think if anything, we're just going to see their platform grow faster. And now I think there's the incentives are even more deeply in line from the MLB perspective. So I think excited to see more partnerships like this, and also happy too that it's kind of they're making the strategic investment into creators rather than just trying to like build it from the ground up, because they know it's really important to be able to support these different creators, not just try and like
right.
copy and do it fully on their own. So I think it's a win for everybody, and I think just a really interesting signal of a lot more to come.
Yeah, and broadcasters they usually had to invest in talent over years before they became household names and before they were trusted by the the professional players that they're interviewing and talking to and doing these post game interviews. And John Boy already has a lot of that clout already as soon as
Yeah.
he steps in the door, but also a lot of people from his team as well. So there'll be a different interaction between the creators and John Boy than there will be from people from
1,000%.
you know
Awesome.
ESPN,
Well, there you
TNT,
have
so on
it.
and so forth.
Really enjoyed this conversation. Think there's a lot of really exciting movement across investments, acquisitions, just general growth in the sector. So always love being able to break down some of the most important stories from our perspective. Looking forward to running it back soon. All right. All right, Jordan. Take care, man.
You too.